Perfect. So when my mother told me the most important thing that I'd ever heard in my life to this point, I was too busy thinking about Pluto. Because Pluto has this strange astrological phenomena. Its moon, Charon, is so similar in mass that they actually rotate around each other, which means that the center of gravity between the two planets is actually this cold, dark space between them, and they're rising and they're falling into each other simultaneously and constantly. And I was so wrapped up in this fact that I didn't hear my own mother tell me, "Aaron, you had a sister. She died 2 days after she was born, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you until now." And I heard what happened next, I think. I heard my brother talking about the funeral. I heard my mother continuing to apologize, but honestly, all I could hear was the space between us, and it's getting bigger and bigger because I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm realizing that my 27-year-old body is only here because this little baby girl isn't. And I slowly started processing it in my head and going back and realizing that every spanking, every scolding, every disappointment, which I assure you was so many times throughout my childhood, let myself think that maybe, just maybe, my parents were thinking, I wish it was her instead of him. And I couldn't talk about it for months, and I struggled with it for years, and I started just getting angry. And maybe it's trauma, maybe it's some sort of shared experience, I don't know. But for some reason, this Pluto story got welded into my head because I learned it at exactly the same time. And so I told that story, that little factoid, to everybody that I met. I told them this strange astrological phenomena, there's this strange space between space where there's nothing, but everything is revolving around it. And I think it was my way of being able to come out to people and to tell them this thing that I'd kept in my psyche and in my darkest parts of me for so long. But I knew it wasn't healthy. I knew I needed to actually talk to my parents, specifically my mom was the one who told me this in Chestnut Hill Cafe. I was eating pea soup. It was something to remember. And it was the week before my wedding. I knew I had to have some closure about this. So I took some drinks. I waited until she went to sleep because I was too afraid to talk about it, so I knew I had to do it now. So I walked upstairs and I sat down next to her in the bed. It was dark. I couldn't see her face. And I asked the question the only question I could think of to ask, which was, is there a picture of her? Is there a picture of Eleanor, my sister? And there was nothing. There was just silence. And I could tell she was surprised. And this space between us and the dark was getting farther apart still because I was dwelling in this moment. And then inexplicably, she says, no. She says, there's nothing. And I got angry. I got so angry in that moment. Because this was supposed to be my come to Jesus after school special. Everybody loves Raymond's thing where it's we hug and we become a family and we've never had to struggle for anything, but this is our moment, and she says, no, there's nothing. And I just sit there and I'm not sure what to say or what to think. And she goes on, she says, I made a choice months after it happened that I could let this define who I was, or I could let who I have define who I was. And in that moment, I thought to myself about all the spankings, all the scoldings, all the disappointment, which happened so much, and how much she let herself feel those things. Knowing all the other things, all the secrets that she kept from her youngest son for 27 years. And for some reason, I still tell that story about Pluto to everybody that I can talk to. Here, did you guys know about Pluto? It's not even a planet anymore. That hurt. But I think about that the solar system is more than just Pluto and Charon. There's this sun that's out there. And Pluto and Charon are rotating around that, even if they're rotating against this space between space. And the space between these planets and the sun is getting closer all the time. And sometimes every day on Pluto. And sometimes a day can be thousands and thousands and thousands of our years. But every day on Pluto, the sun rises. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Nice shot.
Thank you.